Today on the route, we'll be talking about helicopter parenting gone wrong. Bump, bump, bump. It's like some old movies back in the day. That's so fake. Okay, we gotta get serious, man. So,
okay, all right, get serious. Get serious. What are we doing today on the route?
Yes. So today I want to talk about the time my mom tried to save my job with the Chicago Bears. So,
take us back.
Yeah, I am.
Take us back.
So, as I've talked about before, when I first got drafted to the Chicago Bears, I was riding high. I thought this was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I thought life couldn't get any better. And that's how I approach things. I wasn't approaching it as a professional. I didn't approach this like it could be taken away from me. This was like, I've worked so hard in college to get here. Now I'm here. You owe this to me. So obviously, a few months go by. I'm the starter, starting for about 6 or 7 games. Then they bring in Van Tuene. Now we're rotating. Then all of a sudden he's starting and I'm backing him up. And now I'm at the point to where I'm on the bench. I'm not even dressing anymore. And during this whole process, my mom has always been there for me. So, that's first thing I want to get out there. She's always been that person, my protector, provider. If there was a problem, that's who I went to.
So she's been involved with the entire time of the Chicago Bears. She's been at the games.
Yeah, she's been to a few games. But she's very supportive. Anytime I needed to talk to her about things. But as I was getting older, the transition from high school to college, then from college to pro, there was that wanting to spread my wings, wanting to be a man, wanting to do things on my own.
So you weren't sharing as much with your mother?
Right. I started to pull back a little bit, and not in a negative way, but just kind of like, this is my life now. You don't need to be involved in every second, every step of what I'm doing.
In what ways were you kind of concealing information? When did you feel like it was negative, or did you feel like, I don't really need to tell you everything?
I think it was like that. I don't feel like I need to tell you anything. Now, it's always been like, well, when you get out my house, then you can do what you want. I'm sure you've heard that too. So I kind of took that to heart. Like, okay, I'm paying my bills. I got my own car. I'm doing adult things now. So I don't, and I hate to say it because it sounds so terrible, I don't need you as much now. And I know that sounds awful.
It sounds awful, but we get what you're saying.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't need to lean on you as much as I did when I was a teenager.
Absolutely.
And that's it's almost like you're trying to show your appreciation for her getting you there. It's like,
absolutely,
you did all this work. Now it's my turn to do the work.
To take it from here. Right. Yeah. And so being in Chicago, I was doing things and I was, partying. I've talked about that. I wasn't working as hard as I should, but I kept all that in-house with me because I'm like, this is my life now, and this is the way I want to live, or at least that's what I thought at the time. Like, this is football, and this is what football is all about.
Big superstar Russ.
Yeah, big superstar, right. You couldn't tell me that wasn't the way. You look at all these TV shows and you hear about this party life, and so, I kind of got caught up in that. And as I went on and I started to lose my job, my high school coach, Larry McDonald, great friend, mentor, just kind of, he was there just as much as my mom, but he was a big part of my life growing up. He had a connection with the Chicago Bears. He knew the equipment manager, Tony Medlin. And so just like I said, my mom has always been there. She's always had input. She's always been able to be on scene if there's an issue. So now all of a sudden I've moved away from North Carolina. I'm in Chicago now. I'm in the Midwest. She doesn't have that access. She can't just come up there and see what's going on. So as I started to lose my job.
And what was that? Let's really explore that moment, because I know in previous episodes you kind of talked about when Van Tuene came in and you didn't even realize it at that point. What was the moment where you're just like, oh, something's happening here and I'm now the last to know?
I was the last to know because I was being ignorant. I didn't want to believe it.
I didn't want to
see it. Yeah.
It was in front of you.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't any dirty pool or anything like that. Everything was above board, and they brought him in, and this is what I learned, the NFL, not for long. And so he came in and he was balling, and at first it was it's good to have a break. It's good to have somebody to split time with. But then I started noticing that it was 50-50, 55-45. And then it was like, oh, wow, like, this is happening right now. Like I'm a backup. And so I try to now get out of the mud, but I'm too far in it now. And he's starting to progress. He's doing better. The coaches are seeing where he's doing this, I'm doing this. So now they make the change. And, that was real hurtful. I'm not going to sit here and lie and pretend like, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, you went from being a starter in the NFL, something you dreamed about since you were little, and now all of a sudden that's been taken away from you. And when it happened, it was very devastating. I was just
What was that game? What was that game where you weren't starting?
Oh, gosh, you're making me go back a long ways. Oh, my goodness. I can't
Can you remember that game?
I can't. It was like maybe the middle of the season, so week 7, week 6, something like that. I wish I could remember the actual game.
Because I'm trying to figure out the moment where you no longer could keep it a secret from the family and from your mom, and they saw that you were no longer starting. And did they realize that was happening?
Well, she saw that I wasn't starting.
And so that's when she had questions?
That's when there was like, what's going on?
Right.
And I started getting the phone calls, and I'm like, Mom, just don't worry about it. Like, it's okay. I got it. It's under control. Well, here's somebody who's always been there, who's always solved my problems, who's always been the tip of the spear when it came to dealing with things. So it was just kind of like, well, that's not good enough. Like, I need to know more. I need to know more. So like I was saying, her person that she could kind of reach out to was Tony Medlin, and she knew him through my high school coach who knew him as the equipment manager.
And he knew
what was going on. Yeah, absolutely. Equipment manager.
Did you have conversations with him?
Not about playing time or starting or anything.
But he knew you had a non-verbal, like, something's happening with me.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, if you're at work, okay, man, things are really changing around here. Am I about to be fired? Like, you know what's going
People
on.
Start making eye contact with you.
They start, hey, how you doing?
All of a sudden, you're not invited to the happy hour anymore.
Right, yeah, there are things going on. And so as I'm going through this and dealing with this ordeal, my mom gives Tony Medlin a call. Basically, like, what the hell's going on with my kid? Like, why is my kid not starting? Why is he not on the field?
And for the people who don't understand, how involved is the equipment manager with the day-to-day operations, understanding of the personnel changes?
He's there every single day. He's probably somebody that you see the majority of your day because you have to go to him to get equipment. Hey, this doesn't fit well, or this helmet doesn't feel right. I need extra knee pads. I mean, he's, for lack of a better word, he's kind of like a mother. It's like constantly making sure you got everything. When you go on the road, you pack your bag, but he has his group of people who bring extra everything. So this guy is somebody you really form a bond with faster than anyone else because you say, hey, I need some shorts. Hey, I need a T-shirt. I need this. I need that. So it was good to have somebody like that.
So, like, would they know when things are changing on an equipment level? Do you think? I mean, this is my dumb brain working, so pardon me. Is it like how privy are they to knowing when people are not going to be there anymore? Is there a coach going, oh, yeah, hey, we don't need this uniform to be clean anymore?
No, it's not like they're going to stop washing your equipment. You don't need to put these
shoulder pads on the back.
No, but you do start to notice certain privileges that you had as a starter are now, you've been moved not to the back of the line, but now you're not first in line. Mm-hmm. So they're always going to know. They're going to let them know. If you get cut, they got to clean out your locker.
Yeah, they got to get all your equipment out of there.
They got to get your stuff out. So they kind of have a heads up of what's going on, and they'll know who's starting and who's not, because obviously, just like anything else, you have certain people that you have to make sure that they're ready to go, and it kind of trickles itself down from there. So I'm sure that he knew, just being around the coaches and the coaches talking to him, and he would be at practice and he would see the same things that I'm seeing, but because he's been there 10, 13 years, he recognized that writing on the wall a lot faster than I did.
Yeah, he's a fly on the wall. He's almost like a spy. Your mom kind of was like, this is the right dude to get a little info on. She was kind of sneaky.
Yeah. It felt that way too. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, when she reached out to him and she's just like, what's going on? And, why isn't he starting? And now he's not even playing. Like, what's going on? Like, there was this almost peewee football level of parenting. Like, I want to talk to the coach. I need to talk to the coach. Why is my kid not getting playing time? And it was kind of like, I didn't know that conversation had happened until Tony came to me and he was like, hey, Russell, between me and you, he was very, very respectful about it. He wasn't like, oh, Russell Davis, his mom is calling up here. It was like, hey, man, I just want you to know, your mom called me trying to figure out what's going on with you and why you're not starting, why you're not playing as much, why are you on the bench.
And this was during practice on the game?
It was in the locker room. In the locker room. I went up to, depending on where you are, it's all set up differently, but there's like a big window that you come up to, and it's like getting fast food. You come up to the window, hey, I need this, I need that. And so he kind of was like, hey, let me talk to you real quick. And, you know, I get heightened. I get scared immediately when I hear somebody say I need to talk to you.
Because you're already on edge.
I'm already on edge, right? So he kind of pulled me to the side, and he was like, hey, man, I'm not trying to get anything started, but, you know, your mom called me trying to figure out what's going on with you.
And well, your immediate reaction was what?
It was embarrassment. I'm not going to lie. It was embarrassment, shocked, and then anger. Like,
did you even hear the rest of what he said, or was that just it?
I think when I heard your mom's calling up here to check on you while you're not starting, I think everything else just kind of
you just kind of blank out sometimes when you hear those first few words. It's like, I don't even hear what else you said.
Yeah, and it was one of those times where he even taught. He was like, hey, it's your mom. She just cares about you. But at that time, being young, 23, 24 years old.
The worst age to be.
The absolute worst stage to be. My mind went into, I'm a grown man. I don't need you. That was all the stuff that I had going on in my head. And then I started looking around like, who else knows this? Like, that was the embarrassment for me. Like, okay, Tony, I know you kind of, because we have a connection with my high school coach. So I kind of understand you, but who else on this team knows? Now you're starting to look around like, who else knows about this? Did he say anything to the coaches? Are the coaches now looking at me like, oh, well, no wonder you can't start. You can't even take care of your own business. You got your mom called. These were all the things that were going through my head. I never articulated this to anyone. I never said it to anyone. It was just, okay, my mom called up here like I'm a child. And I will say the anger and the frustration probably came from growing up because it was, single parent. My mom was always that person that was there. Mm-hmm. There was never anyone to say, hey, let him figure it out. I know you want to be there to pick him up for his little boo-boos, but let him work through it. So it was always mom was there, mom was there, mom was there. Almost sometimes as a teenager looking at it like it was overbearing, like
suffocating a little bit.
Like, mom, back off. I got it. I can do it. And that was all the things that was going through my mind. It was like all these buildups through high school. I started to remember, well, this time she did this. Now she's just still doing the same thing. Like, I'm grown. Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, I don't need you to do this. Like, I'll deal with it. I'll work through it. And so, that, like I said, when I heard him tell me that, it was just like wow.
Because I think, and to me, it seems like there's also a powerlessness there.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
You have the military mom, and also she has the lord of the house. Yeah, it's not really much you can say back to, and you're in a southern household, so you can't say anything.
Right.
So there was a powerlessness. I'm talking about a big, powerful lineman feeling powerless.
Oh, absolutely.
In a moment like that,
completely took all the power that I thought I had as a young man, as an up-and-coming man. It was just completely emasculated. That's how I felt like, wow, she just made me feel like crap, and I feel like so low. And, and I wish I could go into more detail about all the feelings that I had at that moment, but I just remember embarrassment and anger were the two main things that I felt, because the first thing you're like is, who else knows this besides you? That was immediate. Like, who else knows this? And I can't tell you, because it's been so long, if I called her immediately, but I did talk to her, and it wasn't the best conversation. I mean, I wasn't disrespectful, but there was that level of, how could you do this to me? Like, why would you embarrass me like this? This is my workplace. These are my coworkers. Like, why would you do this to me? She's like, well, I just wanted to know, and I didn't know what was going on. Okay, Mom, I get that, but you could have came to me. You could have talked to me. You should have asked me. You went over my head. So like you said, it was a position of feeling powerless. Like, you went completely over my head. It didn't matter that you should have talked to me first. You went past me to wanting to know what was going on.
Right. And did she have any inquiry when she started to see the signs? Or were you kind of concealing that really well up until that point?
Being in Chicago, there was that distance between me and my mom.
We're talking about the 90s too.
Yeah,
so
yeah. It wasn't social media. It wasn't stuff wasn't in your face as much. So she didn't know what was going on. But once, gosh, I wish I could remember the game. But once she saw that I was no longer playing, it was just like, I can say it now, being an adult, looking back at it, having an understanding, marriage, children. I know it was fear. Yeah. Like, what's going on with my child? I don't know what's going on. I need to know what's going on. He's not telling me what's going on, but I do have a way to figure it out. I can call this person. Right. And that was the route that she took. And unfortunately, that was like, oh God, Mom, no. That hurt me. Like I felt devastated. I felt betrayed. And I just felt like, you don't trust me. Like, I can deal with this. I'll work through it. I'll handle it. You calling these people, once again, it goes back to now I'm sitting around and I'm looking like, who knows who's making fun of me, who's talking behind my back, because you went over my head and stole what power I thought I was gaining. You just completely snatched that away from me. And I was just like, man, Mom, like that really hurt me.
Did she hear you when you were saying this?
Not at the time, no.
No,
not at the time.
So you're trying to express like this, hey, this is how things need to be. This is the power and the autonomy over my own career and life I need to have right now. And it wasn't heard in that moment.
You know what? I don't think I articulated it at all.
Right. Because you're angry.
I'm angry, right? I'm coming from a place of hurt, and I didn't take, like, now I can say, okay, let me take a step back. Let me breathe. Let me talk to some people. Hey, how should I handle this? This was a 23-year-old, young kid, basically, like lashing out. Like, I think I'm grown, so I can talk to you as an adult. And so it wasn't the type of conversation that needed to be had right then and there. It needed to be one of like, okay, let me calm down. Let me get this situated so I have some answers for you. But also, Mom, you need to understand that this is now my life. This is, if I need your help, I will ask for it. But if I don't push. What's going on? What's going on? Because it's like, I want to deal with this, because for so long you ruled the house. You were without question. It was your home, your rules, my way or the highway type of thing. And so now that I'm given some freedom, now that I have an opportunity to kind of spread my wings and be who I want to be and kind of figure things out, now you're back at it again, and you're like, no, you're going to do what I said. I want to know what's going on. And if you won't tell me, I'll find somebody who will.
Helicopter parents.
Helicopter parents.
Helicopter parents.
Absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely. And I know they mean the best.
You're the firstborn son too, right?
Yeah.
So you're the first baby to leave the house. Mm-hmm. How do you even process that? I've taken care of you for 20 years and now you just not here anymore and I don't have a say in it. That's wild.
Yeah. And I think that's what it was, because being a parent, I can understand that. Mm-hmm. Like, you've always been here for this person. You've always done things when they needed you. They fall, tie your shoe. As you leave the house, do you have everything in your book bag? Like, you've done this thing so much that in your mind, it's just like a knee-jerk reaction. Like, I'm just trying to help. I love you. I care about you. So I'm trying to do these things for you. I don't want you to hurt. I don't want you to suffer. So I'm going to do these things. I'm going to get ahead of that so you don't have to deal with it. And for so long, when that's always been the formula, now all of a sudden I'm like, no, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to make my own way. Now I have to deal with these things. And it was traumatic for both of us, I believe.
Yeah. Like, the crazy thing is, you guys were both feeling a sense of powerlessness. You in one way and her in a completely different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas you wanted to have power over your own life, she is now learning that she no longer has the power to guide her children in the way she sees fit. Yeah. And it may not, there may have been some anger and rage with her, or maybe it was just like this sorrow.
I think it was more of the sorrow, like this is my baby.
Right.
Like, I've always taken care of you. It's always been me and you, ride or die. And now it's just me, which is not really just you. It's still there for you. I still support you now. But now it's about you putting that into me and letting me do that for you now. Let me protect you. Let me take care of you. If you need something, call me. Yeah. And that dynamic was very hard for her to accept. And I think that's where we struggled, because when you called up there, it's like, well, if you won't tell me what's going on, I'm going to find out what's going on my own. And that was just like, Mom, like,
Right.
come on. Like, that just hurt me so bad. And I was so embarrassed and angry that it really, and I hate to say it scarred me, but it really did, because it was like, I don't want to feel that way again. And when I have kids, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I'm not going to be that overbearing parent.
You remember that feeling pretty strongly. And
Oh, yeah.
I hear all the time, it's like, you may not remember the events exactly, but you remember how you felt forever.
Yeah, you do. And those are things that I can talk about now, and it's not really a big deal. It's almost like therapy sitting here. Mm-hmm. I understand being married, having children of my own. I understand why she did what she did now at 49 years old, because I have kids. I have a wife. I have a mother who wants to protect her kids. When the little ducklings get out of line, she wants to run and put, no, baby, let them go. Let them try it. It's okay if they fall. It's going to hurt.
So important.
It's very important.
So important to get scars and understand that you can heal.
Yeah. That you can bounce back.
Kids got to start to understand that. And also your mom has to like trust that she did everything she was supposed to do to get you here. So there's like a lack of trust in herself.
Yeah, but I
understand it. Like I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I always compare it to me, my marriage, and then my mother not being married, is that there's a partner there to kind of draw those boundaries of, hey, sweetheart, I know he's not starting. Let's call him. I know he wants to learn to ride a bike without training wheels. He's going to fall, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to want to be there, but he's got to learn.
Right.
And that's why I think now I'm able to look back on these things, and I can talk about them with such fondness and like loving memories now, because I understand, like, you had to do everything. You weren't able just to be the loving, caring mom and then let dad be the one to let him fall. Well, he's all right. Get up, rub some dirt on it.
Yeah.
She had to be there. And as a woman, you're emotional. Her emotions are in it. It's like, oh my God, I got to protect them. I see you're about to fall. I don't want you to fall. Whereas I know for me, my kids, I'm going to let you fall. I know you're not going to fall too far. You're up. You're only 2 feet off the ground. You'll be okay.
Right. I'm the same way with my sons. My son and my daughter. I'll try to like let them hurt themselves. And the funny thing is I won't tell their mom, because I know that she'll be like, why did you let them hurt themselves? I'm like, because the lesson was learned immediately through that experience. Yeah. They learned the lesson immediately through that.
Yes.
Like, I've never told their son, my kid's mom this, but when my son got old enough to climb out of the crib, that's like, he figured out how to climb out of the crib and fall into the chair and then land on the ground. And we kept telling him, I'm like, hey, you can't do this. No. And he thought it was so funny. He would do it. I filmed him one time, and he looks at the camera and he goes, ha, 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 ha. He's 2 years old.
Yeah.
And so finally I moved the chair and I put an ottoman there, and he fell on the ottoman and he took a hard tumble and he cried, and I went in there and consoled him, but he never did it again.
Yeah.
He was like, I know I cannot get out of the crib anymore.
Yeah.
So like, actually sounds so cruel.
I know, when you listen to yourself say it out loud.
I just like manipulated my son into his own injuries, and I'm a good dad for that. But it was like a hard lesson learned, and sometimes it's hard to, like, if you're a helicopter parent and you're there constantly correcting behavior and watching like a drone flying over your kids' lives, it's like they'll never learn what those consequences really are.
Right.
All they have is your word, and they'll constantly test that.
Yeah.
They'll go, well, let's see if it was actually right. And then you're going to be in a bad position, especially if you're in your 20s trying to test things that you should already know.
Yes, that you should already
know this.
Yeah, during high school. I mean, there were issues in high school that I had to go through, and my mom was right there. Like, no, you be quiet. I got this. And it's like, damn, like, I want to talk for myself. I want to try to do things, like, to constantly be, hey, be quiet. I got this. You don't know what you're doing. And it's like, oh my God, well, how am I supposed to learn?
I used to know what
how am I supposed to learn? And it's like, so when I see like parents, especially when I coached Little League football, I used to see that a lot with the parents. It's like, let your kid go out here and earn it. Yeah. Well, why isn't my kid getting playing time? Well, here's a list of things, but the main thing is they just don't want it. They know when things get too tough, here comes mom and dad. they're going to fight my battles for me. And it's like sometimes you got to give them a little more slack to let them deal with things. Like obviously you're not going to let them walk on a train track, but you need to do certain things so they understand there's consequences.
Right.
There's consequences for your actions. There's consequences for not working hard and thinking like I have NFL dreams, but I got pee-wee work habits. Mm-hmm. Like you need to learn these things and you have to go through stuff. So for me, I always felt growing up that my mom was overprotective, especially being a boy, you know, because you think you're a man, you know, you don't even know what that means, but you throw that word around. So I'm a man, I'm 16, I'm grown, I'm growing up, I'm 18, I'm a man, I'm 20. You think you know what a man is, but you need to learn as you grow. If you're always being protected, you don't know the dangers that are out there because she's always, no, step back. You can't go over this way. So you think, well, I'm a man. Leave me alone. I can handle it. Yeah, you don't know what a man is. It's a lot that goes into that, but you have to learn. Yeah, you have to learn that. So I think that was something that really, it affected me in the way of this is what I'm not going to do with my kids.
Okay.
Like that was almost one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to be overprotective. I'm going to figure out what that boundary is to be like, okay, I'm going to let you try, but then I'm going to step in. And that was something like one of the conversations that, as my kids got older and they would disagree or they didn't like something, I could tell by their body language. And I'd be like, you're upset right now, aren't you? And they'd be like, they wouldn't say anything because they're little kids, 7, 8 years old. Yeah. So they don't want to get in trouble. And I'm like, I want you to communicate me. I want you to tell me what's going on with you. Just remember who you're talking to. You know, that was always my thing with my kids. I want you to talk to me. I want you to be like, Dad, you pissed me off. Well, let's not say pissed off at 7 years old. But Dad, I'm mad because you took this toy away from me. Right. I'm mad because you did this. I've always wanted that level of dialogue of, you don't have to agree with everything I do. And if you have a problem, let's talk about it. I'm not always right. I want you to know that. Like you can come and say to me, Dad, can I talk to you? I think the way you yelled at me or the way you embarrassed me in front of my friends, that's not cool. As long as you're not like, hey, let me tell you something. Who you think? Hold on. Remember who you're talking to.
Right. You don't want to go crazy.
Yeah. Exactly.
But so in that approach, it feels like almost like you're accomplishing two different things, right? You're not only helping the kids to understand that they can talk to you, but you're trying to also break the helicopter parenting that you might do to your kids. Yes. So it's two things, because I think about that situation with your mom and how you didn't have the tools to communicate how that was affecting your life, because you've spent your whole life under boot of military mom. Yes, ma'am. Do what you're told.
Yeah.
So you didn't even have the tools to tell her, let alone her being in the place to hear it.
To want to hear
so it was two barriers there. And now you're working to change that with your kids.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was easier for me having a daughter first, because that brings out your soft side. They just hug on you and you're like, oh my God. So I would talk to her a lot. And as she got older, I could see there were times where she would be upset. And I'm like, she's a person too. She has feelings. She has emotions. She has a thought process. She has input into this. So it'd be like, hey, what's wrong? Well, Daddy, I didn't like when you did and you took in my toy. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't like that. And as you give them that freedom, they start to understand like, okay, Dad may have yelled at me. I may have gotten my butt whipped, but I want to talk to you about what happened. And as they got older, it was one of those things where as they got older, that's when they get the little smart mouth and they'd be like, hey, remember who you're talking to. Like I love giving you the freedom. I want you to be able to articulate yourself and tell me how you feel. But remember, you're still talking to your father.
Yeah, then you're going to be in bed rest. Now you remember who you talking to. I'm paying for this care for you.
And that's one of those things. That's why I always make the comparison. I compare my life to my mom, who didn't have a significant other there to kind of even, and I hate to say this, I hope I don't get in trouble, set boundaries even for her when it comes to parenting. With my wife, my wife sometimes wants to jump out there and I'm like, let her be mad. Like when my daughter did dance and she would lose, my wife wanted to console her. And it's like, you know what? Let her be mad for a little while. It's okay. Let her be frustrated. If she doesn't want that third place trophy, that's okay. It's all right.
You actually don't even want your parents around when they do that. Yeah. Yo, when you taking L's and someone's like, it's okay, it's like, it's not
okay.
Okay.
It's not.
This is not okay. You think this is okay? You are lying to me.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to hear it.
I don't want
to. Now I don't
it.
even value your input in moments like this. Yeah. If this is what you're saying.
If you say this is okay, then it's like, no, I don't think this is okay. And
I understand it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're trying to say. But this is not okay. This is devastating. Currently, this is the worst thing happening to my entire life.
Yeah.
So don't come over here and say it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point for parents to understand is like, it's okay for a kid to be mad after a loss. Mm-hmm. It's okay if they're riding home in the car and they haven't said anything. Like, it's perfectly okay. Let them deal with those emotions. Let them work through it. Now, obviously, by the time you get home and they've taken a shower, cleaned up, hey, man, how you feel? Pissed off, we lost, and now they want to talk about it, but don't try to pull it out of me fresh out of the fire. Like I just got done battling and giving it my all, and I came up short. I don't have the words to express to you right now. And I think, because even my wife has been like that sometimes, like she'll talk to the kids after a loss and be like, how do you feel? Are you okay? And it's like, right now he's mad. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to talk about it. He has to deal with his emotions the best way he knows how. And then when he's better and he's feeling all right, I come in the room and be like, how you doing, Deuce? I'm all right. I'm okay. Like, you sure, man? Like, that was a tough loss today. And yeah, it was a tough loss. And now you can get more out of them. Yeah. But if it's fresh like that and it just happened, you can't get anything from them. You're just going to get anger. They're upset because they don't really know how to process it. You as a parent just want to love them and help them get through it. But it does this, and it's getting the opposite effect.
You're robbing them of understanding an emotion and a feeling that they should understand to be an adult. Yeah. Be emotionally aware of yourself and how things affect you is very important in becoming like a real adult.
It is.
I think about like the Barbie movie. You've seen that, right?
No.
You haven't seen the Barbie movie?
No, I haven't seen the
There's a movie. I thought you would have seen the Barbie movie. I thought you were a Barbie movie boy.
I don't know. No. We're not even going to get into that. No.
There's a moment in the Barbie movie, but we know like, Barbie is like an insulated airhead type personality. And they go into that in the movie. And there's a moment in the Barbie movie where she goes out into the real world and she has to experience reality. And that's kind of what's happening with kids. If you've been in this insulated make-believe world like Barbie, and then you get out in the real world where you no longer have those protections, and you've also not made sure that person understands that these things are going to happen, they're going to be out there looking crazy like Barbie.
Yeah. No, it is. That's a great example, but
now you gotta watch the movie.
Yeah, I still don't think it's gonna happen. Yeah, I remember when that came out, I was kind of like, Barbie movie, like I don't know about this. And but I have been with both of my kids. My daughter was a competitive dancer. That is probably one of the craziest sports for young ladies to be involved in because it's so cutthroat, and she had to learn real quick. And there were times where I wanted to pull her out of the fire, like, y'all are being too mean. But I'm like, you know what? You got to deal with it. Those are kids, and those are kid problems. It's not like you're arguing with an adult. Right. You're dealing with kids. And I think that has made them stronger throughout their careers because as they get older, and she started to move through the ranks, and she got to high school, and she's a freshman on varsity as a dancer, and she had to deal with some of the other girls there who didn't think she belonged there, and but because the foundation was laid early that these are kid problems, these are kid situations, you deal with it. She was able to deal with those problems when they came up. And the same with my son playing football. And to me, I'll say this, I probably let him stay in the fire too long sometimes because it was that I was overcompensating for what I felt like my mom didn't let me do. And sometimes my wife would be like, dude, he's a child. Like, he's not going to know. He's not going to deal with that. Like, and it was like, damn, Russell, you need to relax a little bit. But it helped him as he got older. Like one of the things, and I would have to show you the pictures, one of my favorite pictures, it's after his junior year in high school when we lost in the championship game to Chandler. And I remember coming down to the fence and I was looking at him. And normally we don't really talk after the game. We may talk in the ride home. I go down and I'm kind of standing by the fence and he like located me. He found me and he came to me, and I knew I could look at him. I was like, he's broken right now. Like I know my son. And he comes over and I'm getting emotional just talking about it. And like, he gives me this hug, and I haven't hugged him like that since he was a baby, like 5 or 6 years old. And I had his head like this, and I had him around the back, and he was like, Dad, what else could I do? And I'm like, did you give it your all? He was like, yeah. Nothing else you can do then. Said, so get it out. Go ahead, cry now. Wipe your face. Go shake the opponent's hands. Tell them good job. But you did everything you could. And guess what, brother? This is life. It doesn't matter how hard you work. Sometimes you just come up short. And that was a tough one, even for me, because I'm like, I'm like, dude, he played a hell of a game. He did this, he did that. And he just came up short. And it's like, you have, as a parent, to not have an answer for that. Just to tell him, dude, it's life. Like, that hurt me, like, just to even talk about it now. And it's been years. But because of that, he grew from that, and he got better. And he came back the next year like, okay, I don't want that to happen to me again. So I'm going to do everything I can. So, he's off the charts with sacks and TFLs and Defensive Player of the Year. He had all these awards. And I think it came from him knowing that, okay, you telling me I can't do anything about it? I don't believe that. I'm not going to accept that. I know if I work harder and I do more, I can change my outcome. So it was just, it's one of those things that I just, as a parent, what my mom did, it was like, okay, I definitely don't want to ever take my kid's voice away. I don't ever want them to feel like they're not heard or I don't respect them. And I'm not saying that my mom didn't respect me, because I always balance it with, she was the only parent.
That's how she was brought up.
That's how she was brought up in the military.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you're going to do. Go get it done. I don't want to hear your mouth. Just go do it. Mm-hmm. And that was just how she thought things were supposed to be.
It was survival.
It was a survival mechanism. Absolutely. But that's why I'm able to do what I'm doing. I'm better because of what my mom did. I'm better. I got married. I had my kids, so when I deal with them, I always have certain situations happen in life. And I'm like, I reflect back to, well, this is how I felt in this situation. I don't want y'all to feel that way. I want you to feel like you always have a voice. Now, sometimes I don't want to hear your mouth right now. Well, Dad, hey, right now, let's shut it up, because you really got me upset. Best thing to do is let's get a little space between us.
Absolutely. Have you ever gone back and revisited that moment with your mom? That call to the equipment manager, and how long was it before you were out of the Chicago Bears from that moment?
Gosh, not even the following season. Like, the season was over in December. I was probably released February, March of the following year. So it was within a few months after I wasn't starting. They were like, okay, well, we brought you in, a second-round pick. That's a high draft pick. You were picked in the first 50 picks, which is very high. You have high expectations for those guys. And for it not to work out there, it was like, well, let's just cut our losses and move on.
Yeah.
So it was a learning process for me. And that's why when I got picked up by the Cardinals, I came here with a different mindset. I came here with the Van Tuene mindset that I'm going to take somebody's job. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that's a terrible thing to think, but it happened to me.
Yeah.
And if I'm pushing you and you're better, then we're all getting better. But if I'm pushing you and I push past you, well, then it's my turn. This is for me to have.
And that probably, I'm guessing that changed how you communicated with your mom about things that were going on from the Cardinals forward.
You always put me on the spot with that, because I'm so terrible. I'm such a terrible person when it comes to my emotions. There are things like I could sit here and talk to you about it, and I could sit here and tell the whole world about it. But if I was to sit here across from my mom,
from your mom, it would be different.
It would be so different. I would just be like, well, Mom, I know me, and our relationship has always been one of, I love you, I love you. Let's just move past this. We may talk about it briefly, but to go into like, well, just like we sat here and said, well, Mom, it made me feel like this. It made me feel like you took my power away. I don't dwell on that anymore, because I've had so much success in my life that I look back on these things and I'm like, well, if this hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened. So it all happened for a reason. And I truly believe that. So I think that
That's a great mindset to have, by the way.
I just feel that way. I feel like if it was something that was so bad that we need to talk about it, then we probably need to go to therapy if it's bothering me that much. But these were things that, as I've gotten older, I've experienced life. I have a wife. I understand that it was just things that she did not have at her disposal. She didn't know. So I can't be mad at you for what you didn't know. You didn't know that you were robbing me of my manhood. You were just trying to protect your child. And I get that. I understand that. But because of what happened there, I'm a better parent for it. So for me, a lot of the problems or things that I may get on here and talk about and joke about, I feel like have made me a better person, a better father, and a better husband. So I guess for me to go back and pick at that scab, It's like, it's nothing. I don't feel like there's anything going to be gained for it.
Are you saying that if your mom hadn't called the equipment manager, you'd be a worse person?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, come on. Like that's such
trying to reverse it.
Yeah, I'm like, how do you know any situation in your life if it went differently? How would you have turned out?
I try not to change the past because I like who I am and I like how I think.
Yes.
And every bad situation has helped shape that person.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I hope your mom hears this episode.
No, she does. You know what? It's funny because you really put me on the spot last time when you were like, have you had this conversation with your mom? And I was like, no, I haven't. But I said, the next best thing is I say, hey, Mom, I want you to check out this episode I just did about you. And she watched it and she was like, wow, you did a really good job. I was like, you remember the young lady? She goes, oh, yeah, I remember. So it's like, this is my way of being like, hey, Mom, I love you. I appreciate everything you did for me. I don't harbor any like ill will or I'm like, oh, my mom, I just feel like she did the best she could do with what she had. And I feel like you said, I like who I am. I like who I've become. I like what I am for my kids. I like where my kids are. So I don't feel like at the time it felt like a negative. It felt like negative. The worst thing in the world. Yeah, when you're going through it, you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever dealt with in my life. But for me, it was just like, now I look back on it and I'm like, you know what? I learned a lot from that. I learned from those mistakes and I've moved past that. And I didn't allow my kids to be that way. So guess what? When it's their turn to be parents, they're going to know, okay, I'm going to listen to you, little whoever, okay, your grandpa always listened to me, his mom, blah, blah, so you just, you teach your kids how to be better. And I think that's what happened with that.
In some respects, she's created the father that you are today.
Absolutely. 100%.
Through her blunders and her successes.
It was a couple of them in there, man. It was like, oh my God, Mom, like, are you serious right now? Like, chill out. Like, you're doing way too much.
We need to get a review of your mom on this episode.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That'd be awesome. I think that'd be a great idea. Thanks for tuning in to The Route. Don't forget to subscribe and connect with us on socials for exclusive updates. We'll see you next week.